So here we are on the eve of E3. This video will probably be going up on YouTube right in the midst of all that, so probably no one will care by then. But regardless, so the global sales chief for Sony, a man named Jim Ryan, was talking about the 60 million PlayStation 4 units that have been sold since it has launched when he was being interviewed by Time magazine. Apparently, they got into talking about backwards compatibility, and for those of you who don't know, PlayStation 4 has zero backwards compatibility. You can buy PlayStation 2 games, and you can stream PlayStation 3 games on it through PlayStation Now. No PS1 games. Okay, so Xbox One has backwards compatibility with Xbox 360, much the same way that the 360 had backwards compatibility with the original Xbox. You would get a patch and you could just pop the disc in and it would start working. And it's very nice because you don't have to buy the game again to play it on a system that you already own with a game you already own. So it's very convenient. So when talking about it, this Jim Ryan fellow said, when we've dabbled with backwards compatibility, talking about the PlayStation, I can say it is one of those features that is much requested, but not actually used much. That, and I was at a Gran Turismo event recently where they had PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4 games, and the PS1 and PS2 games, they looked ancient, like, why would anybody play this? Well, Jim, that's kind of like saying...
Why do people still play... no, never mind. You go ahead.
I was going to say, why do people still listen to the Beatles? Why bother going back and watching Citizen Kane? Cinematography is so much better nowadays. Like, there is such a... Here's the deal. We're in the point where retro gaming, what's considered retro, is, let's face it, it's constantly expanding. People are getting older. As they get older, they will become nostalgic for stuff that they grew up in or grew up with. So you have a lot of people like in their 40s that love to collect for Atari, ColecoVision, Commodore 64, all those pre-NES game systems. Then there are people, like Pat Contry, the NES punk, where he has a full collection of every NES game. That's the system that he grew up with. Later systems, like the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64, PlayStation, that era, that is about to enter into that territory where you're going to have these older people wanting to, and I say older people, but, people in their 30s and their 40s that are going to want to start collect for those systems. It's really nice to have the original hardware, or the original game that you can play on brand new hardware. So but we're not there yet. We're kind of in a slump. We're kind of like, Nintendo had a nice thing going with the 3DS and the Wii U and the Wii, where they were backwards compatibility, with the last generation of games. I think it's great that I can play original DS on my 3DS. Same thing with Wii U and Wii games, or Wii and GameCube games, or even Game Boy Advance and all previous Game Boy games. That's a great feature to have. It adds value to the product. Does it cost the company money? Absolutely. It does. But when a PC with specs lower than a PlayStation 4 can run a PlayStation 2 and a PlayStation 1 emulator just fine, why not just do that? Why not just have one guy, it would probably take him a month, if that, to make an emulator and put it out there. You're adding value for the consumer, And like that could be like a bullet point one more of those bullet points that you could put on as like an additional feature of what your machine can do for not much investment, I don't believe. And every single time it's brought up, they're just like, yeah, it's really hard to do. No, it's not. It's really not, especially to the point where we're at. It's ridiculous what the emulation scene is doing. They've got, my goodness, they have Dreamcast emulators running on smartphones. I mean, if your smartphone can run that kind of level of emulation, there's no reason that you can't do that for the PlayStation 4.
I had a Game Boy Advance on, I think it was my iPhone 4.
Mm-hmm.
I just played A Link to the Past and Pokemon Emerald version.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so much fun.
And they played fine, right?
They played fine. They drained the crap out of my battery.
Very processor intense.
It's like 100% battery power. 30 minutes later, I'd be at like 30%. I'd be like, wow. Oh.
Please play only when plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's honestly, it's not a hard thing to do. I honestly think the reason why Sony, who was kind of a pioneer in backwards compatibility, starting with the PS2, basically with the PS1 games, you could load them faster and smooth out the textures. That was great feature. And how they actually pulled that off was they basically had the PS1 hardware in the PlayStation 2 as the sound chip for the device. So when you put in a PS1 game, it would just use that system on a chip that doubled as the sound chip for PS2 games. Why not keep doing that? Like, they could have done that with the PS3. They could have done that with the PS4. Technology is amazing how fast it advances, but it's just I don't think that they want to invest any time or any money in it when I don't think it would even cost that much. First of all, and secondly, they can't sell their HD remasters. And that's the other thing, like, if no one wants to play these games from those generations, why the constant HD version or PS4 version of a PS3 game? Like, why do that if no one wants to play these games? Obviously people do, but then they miss out on money. And here's my deal. You can do that. You can release the HD, you can release remasters, whatever you want, with extra content, all the DLC, blah, blah, blah. Do all that, but have the old games run on there as well. Because with that, even with upscaling doesn't look as nearly as good as something running at a native 1080p. You have that as a feature. You can make the game run smoother in the HD versions, like especially with the Kingdom Hearts collection. Like, the games run now at 60 frames per second. They never have before. Same thing with Resident Evil 4 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Looks great. That's like a whole new way to play. But you could also make it backwards compatible also, if you really wanted to. But I've talked about this for enough time. What do you think about backwards compatibility in general? And I know you had an Xbox One. Did you use backwards compatibility in the least?
Oh yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
What games did you play on it?
Skate 3 was a game that I absolutely loved playing on Xbox 360, and then when I got an Xbox One, I did have a copy of it, but I didn't know if it would actually play on my Xbox 360, like the hard copy.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I could have just Googled it and just checked, but I didn't want to, like, I was lazy, and I didn't want to, like, put the disc in and then have it just, like, be destroyed. So I just kept playing it on like, since I had the physical copy of it at the time, I was like, I have a 362. I'll just play it on that.
Play it on it.
But you can play it on the Xbox One, which I like. And then also Viva Pinata, the gardening one. As I've said before, I like little farming simulation games, or not simulation, but like Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, games like that. I love those. And when like Viva Pinata came out, I was like, I remember when I first saw it, I was like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. And then I played it at my buddy's house. I was like, oh my gosh, I want it.
I love this game so much.
It's so good. And I remember looking at videos of like how to get like rare animals, and like you could get like a dinosaur pinata. It's so good. I loved it. Halo. Loved playing that. I have that song on my iTunes account. I think I may have bought the entire soundtrack for Halo 3.
Actually, I really do like the music of Halo. I really do.
Back when, what was it? Was it Bethesda? When Bethesda owned, oh my gosh, dude, Bethesda. I wish Bethesda had kept the rights to Halo.
They used to have the rights to. Are you talking about Bungie?
Bungie. That's
Bungie.
right, Bethesda. Yes, Bungie.
Those Elder Scrolls fellas.
Don't you remember screaming at the elites, Dovkin?
I've got Shoot 'em Up Towerland. The new game from Bethuji.
Oh, but yeah, that. Not only that, but if you got the, I ended up getting the Master Chief Collection on my Xbox One, which came with Halos 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think 1 and 2 were both remastered. So I guess that's not really like backwards compatible, but
No, not really.
I think
you could probably, because I know Halo Anniversary came out for 360.
Halo Reach, the 360 version of Halo Reach could be played on Xbox One.
Mm-hmm. I think all the Halo ones do. Probably ODST also.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm one of those people that likes to forget about ODST. I didn't enjoy it very much.
Still a Halo game. Like all the first party Xbox games, I'm sure they've made backwards compatible. And they've even done it for a lot of third party games as well.
Yeah, the Portal games, I think they're backwards
Red Dead
compatible.
Redemption.
Have to. Oh, Red Dead Redemption 2. I want to see that at E3. I need it at E3.
So the point is, I've used that feature.
I've never had to like worry about it because it's always been there.
Right.
I've had Microsoft consoles since since the 360 like first came out.
Yeah.
We've had them. So I've always been able to do backwards compatible games, which has always been nice. So like I've never actually like, I don't know, I can understand like your point of view of like, I have the game here, this is a console, like there are other consoles that can play games from like the last generation on the current generation.
Right.
Why can't I do it with this? It's basically the same thing. Let me just do it. I can understand the frustration with that.
Yeah, they're being a butthead.
Yeah, I've personally never had to deal with that because it'd be just like,
But
just do it.
It's so strange though, because like Sony were pretty much the ones that started it, unless you count like, Game Boy Color and the original Game Boy backwards compatibility. But it's nice when you get a new, like let's say if you have all these older PlayStation games and you have a newer PlayStation, it's nice that you can just play your old library while you're building up the new library. You have something to go back to if you want to play it, instead of just, well, I'm playing on the old system again. Lower resolution, lower, slow load times. And it's just something that I think would be easy. It would take them a little bit of money, but not much in the long run. And they are not going to do it because they don't have to.
Who cares about the consumer?
Right.
Dummy.
We're selling 60 million of these things. Besides, the old games look like crap.
Tell that to the Smash community who's still playing Melee.
Melee, like it's going out of style, and it's not because of them.
It'll never go out of style because it's the supreme ruler of Super Smash Brothers. Oh, I also played Battlefront 2 on 360 a lot.
Yeah.
That was ooh. Who's the publisher for Battlefield, or not Battlefield, Battlefront now?
EA.
EA, yeah, EA. Go look at that. That's how you make Battlefront.
Agreed. The next one is looking like it's going to have a single player campaign, so
I don't care.
we'll have to see how that turns out.